Never save money. Those were the first words my grandmother ever drilled into my head. I remember staring at her like she'd lost her mind, because everyone else said the opposite. Save money. Save for the future. Saving is safety. But my grandmother just smiled, the kind of smile that comes from living long enough to learn the hard way, and she said, "No, my child. Don't only save money. Make money grow, or it will shrink while you're sleeping." Today I want to tell you her story, because she wasn't born wise. She became wise the way most people do, through hunger, mistakes, and one brave decision that changed everything. In a small village, there lived an old woman named Amina. People called her dreamy. Some even called her lazy. Not because she had no heart, she had too much heart, but because she had a habit that ruined her life for years. She would sit outside under a big tree every afternoon, looking at the sky, looking at the road, and talking about one day. One day I'll open a little shop. One day I'll buy goats. One day I'll have a garden big enough to feed everyone. One day I'll be comfortable. But one day never came, because Amina kept dreaming and waiting and dreaming. Her husband worked where he could, her children helped when they could, and Amina kept saying, "Someday we'll be fine." At first people laughed at her ideas. Later they stopped laughing. They just felt sad. One evening her daughter came to her, tired and quiet, and said gently, "Mother, dreams are beautiful, but dreams don't fill a stomach. We need work. We need money. We need something real." Amina nodded, because she knew her daughter was right. But inside, Amina still believed luck would arrive and rescue her. Then one night, her little granddaughter, barefoot, thin, eyes too big for her face, walked into the kitchen and asked a question that pierced Amina like a needle. "Grandma, do we have bread?" Amina opened the cupboard. It was empty. No bread, no rice, no beans, nothing. That night, Amina didn't sleep. Not because her stomach was empty, though it was, but because her heart was heavier than her body. She kept hearing that little voice. "Do we have bread?" And she understood something painful. Dreams are not enough if you don't move your feet. The next morning, Amina did something she hadn't done in years. She got up early. She covered her hair. She went out to find work. She became a field worker. The sun was hot. The soil was stubborn. The hours were long. Her hands became rough. Her back ached. Her feet burned. But every night she came home with a few coins, and her granddaughter would run to her, excited, asking, "Grandma, what did you get today?" Amina would hold out the coins and say, "It's not much, but it's something." And at first the family felt relief, because coins meant food. Coins meant a little medicine. Coins meant a few repairs. But soon Amina noticed the cruel truth of poor people's lives. Money comes, money goes, and the problems stay. The roof still leaked. The prices still rose. The cupboard still emptied too fast. Saving felt impossible. Still, one day in the village store, Amina heard men talking. One man said loudly, "The secret is saving money. If you save, you are safe." Those words stuck in her mind like a hook. That night, Amina found an empty jar and hid it under her bed. Every week, she dropped a few coins inside. Clink, clink. That sound made her feel proud. It felt like control. It felt like hope. One day, her granddaughter found the jar and asked, "Grandma, what's this?" Amina smiled and said, "This is our tomorrow." But saving required sacrifice. Amina didn't buy new sandals even when hers were torn. She didn't buy warm cloth when the nights got cold. Some days they ate less, Not because there was no food, but because she wanted the jar to grow. Her daughter would look at the small plates and say, "Mother, what's the use of saving money if we stay hungry?" And Amina would answer, "One day you'll understand." Months passed. The jar got heavier. Amina felt safe. Then one day she took the jar to the market, put the money on the table and said, "I want 3 sacks of corn." The shopkeeper counted the coins slowly, then shook his head. "Prices went up," he said. "This buys 1 sack, maybe 1.5." Amina froze. She looked at the money like it had betrayed her. She had sacrificed, she had saved, she had suffered, and still the money had shrunk. Not in her hands, but in what it could buy. That night, Amina sat outside in the dark, staring at the road. The jar was empty again. Her hope felt empty too. And then she noticed something she'd never noticed before. Her neighbours were not rich, but they looked calmer. One neighbour carried eggs, another carried milk, another carried vegetables. They weren't waiting for money to save them. They had small systems that produced something every day. Amina's eyes narrowed like her mind was waking up. She whispered, "What if I don't just save coins? What if I buy something that makes coins?" She called her granddaughter and asked, "What if we buy chickens?" The girl's face lit up. "Chickens? Like an egg factory?" Amina laughed for the first time in weeks. "Yes, like an egg factory." And this time, Amina didn't wait for someday. She acted. She took what she had left, her small savings, and bought a few thin chickens. At first, it wasn't magical. They found 1 egg, then 2. They ate some, they sold some. With the money from the first sales, Amina bought 1 more chicken, then another. She kept notes in a small notebook, every egg, every coin, every cost. Soon neighbours started coming to her house. "Amina, do you have eggs today? Amina, can I buy 2? Amina, can I pay you tomorrow?" Amina learned to run a tiny business without calling it a business. She learned rules. Sell a portion, save a portion, reinvest a portion. And slowly, quietly, life began to change. The cupboard stayed fuller. The granddaughter's cheeks looked less hollow. The roof got repaired. Amina's posture changed too, because she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building. One morning, Amina held an egg in her palm and said to her granddaughter, "This egg is more powerful than a jar of money." The girl blinked. "How?" Amina said, "Money sitting still gets smaller, prices rise, time eats it. But money used wisely, money used to build something, can grow like life." Her granddaughter hugged her and giggled. "So you're not lazy anymore?" Amina smiled with tears in her eyes. "No, my child, I was never lazy. I was lost." Then she looked at the chickens pecking the ground and said the sentence my grandmother told me years later. "Never only save money, make money grow." And that became her message to everyone who would listen. Saving is not bad, saving is important, but saving alone is like holding water in your hands. It slips away slowly, especially when prices rise. If you want safety, build something that produces. Not everyone agreed. Some people still said, "Too risky, too small, not worth it." But Amina didn't argue. She just kept going, because the results spoke louder than opinions. Now listen carefully, because this is the lesson my grandmother wanted me to carry into the modern world. You do need savings, an emergency fund, a cushion, something for bad days. But if all you do is save, and you never build, never invest, never grow, then time and inflation will slowly steal from you. and you won't notice it until you reach for 3 sacks of corn and can only afford 1. So start small. If you can't buy chickens, maybe you learn a skill. If you can't start a shop, maybe you start a side income. If you can't invest big, maybe you invest a little, consistently. Even a small start can change your life. That was my grandmother's story. And if you want more stories like this, simple lessons, real-life wisdom and practical meaning, then stay connected here. Take care of yourself, and don't just save, grow.